By the end of this video, you will learn everything you need to know about materials, like creating a material from scratch. We'll even teach you all of their properties and then having access to them in real time in the viewport so that you can change their properties. Plus, we'll even teach you how to bring materials from online websites, create a material, and then we'll even tell you about problems such as tiling that will probably happen when you bring in materials, and we'll teach you how to fix it. So stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody.
You guys made it. We are now at the chapters for the materials and textures, and we are going to learn all the basics.
That's right. And who's going to teach it?
You.
Hell yeah. Am I getting paid?
Yes, you do.
By who?
By me.
And Polycam, the sponsor of this video. That was good, right? That was pretty good. Okay, shout out to Polycam for sponsoring this video, by the way. This entire course, if you will. So I just wanted to start by saying congratulations if you made it this far. Materials are going to be such an important part of your 3D projects, your 3D files, your cinematics, your creations, because just like in the real world, everything has materials, right? Your table is probably made of wood, your wall is made of plaster, right? These are all different materials. And what is the exact definition of materials?
So materials defines the optical properties of an object. For example, if it's made of wood, metals, or anything else.
So it's color, how dull or shiny it is. These are all the material properties.
Exactly.
And textures, according to Google,
is the patterns that goes on top of the material.
Yet that they break up the uniform appearance. So in 3D files, right here in Unreal Engine, the material is what we apply, right, to different objects. And within the material, we have textures. These textures usually come in as PNG files. So we have a color texture, a metallic texture. If you're familiar with 3D software, you would know what these are. If you don't know, we're going to show you all of that in this video. So do not worry. Now, we're going to be talking about the basic setup of materials here in Unreal Engine. So let's get started. First things first, we actually want to go ahead and go to maybe these TIE fighter blocks right here. And we're going to use them just for the setup of some of our materials.
Let's do it.
So that we can describe to you what materials are. In order to create a material, we have to basically save that material in our content drawer. We have to create it there. So we're going to open up our content drawer by hitting Control Space. And we're going to create a new folder called Materials. So right click on your content folder, new folder, call it Materials, and boom. Just like that, we've created a new folder. Inside this folder, all we have to do is go ahead and right click and then look for materials right here, right? There's so many things you can add, and you can basically check out all of these on your own. You can look what they are online on Google. We haven't used half of them, more than half of them. You're probably going to be using material, not probably, you're going to be using material in every single project. So always know where it's located. You also have the option to add it from here, right? So material, boom. And we are going to go ahead and name our material. Farhad, can we give it a name?
Box material, maybe?
Box material. Now, in Unreal Engine 5, usually if you watch any other tutorials or if you've ever used it, everybody likes to call their first materials the master material. Because in Unreal Engine, we have parent materials / master materials, and you have children materials, so child materials, which are called material instances. And these are lifesavers. They're amazing. We're going to tell you exactly how you can use them to your advantage. But for now, we're just going to call it box material for simplicity. Now, how do we go ahead and apply one of these to one of these boxes?
Drag and drop.
There you go. So drag the material, drop it on top of boxes, and we've got the box material, right? It's gray, it's ugly. Let's go ahead and change it. Boom. Control Space. Double click.
Oh my God, what is this?
We got a new window to talk about. Let's go ahead and maximize this window so we can tell you exactly what this window is all about. Anytime you open up a material, you're going to be shown this window right here. And on the left side, what you're looking at here in this window is your 3D viewport, right? This is where you get to visualize what your material looks like as you make changes to it on the right side right here, which is your material graph. Now, just like any other 3D software, you'll be able to connect different nodes, bring in new textures, and make up any material that you like right here. You can have thousands of nodes if you're a material maniac. We're just going to be doing a few nodes, the ones that you're going to need all the time. And if you've never used nodes before, we're going to teach you how to do that too. So don't worry. When you want to move around the 3D viewport right here, you have to use different controls. So here it's a left mouse click to rotate around this spherical object and zoom in and zoom out using your scroll button just to see what your material looks like. And it updates the moment you go ahead and create changes right here. Now, on the bottom left side, we have a details panel, and this is very similar to the details panel right here. So if you go ahead and select anything in the material graph, you will actually see the new details panel pop up that you'll be able to use to make changes to an exact node on its own. So the first node that we always are going to end up with is going to be our output node, right? This is the material, the overall material node that everything comes to, right? All of the nodes that we create will come towards this node to define what our material looks like. So Farhad, we got a bunch of names here, and these names are the same, pretty much the same in other 3D software. So if you're coming from Cinema 4D, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, you will know what these are. But if you don't know, let's have a quick recap of what every single one of them means. Starting with
Base color.
So what is base color?
The color that your material will have, the RGB color.
Right, so RGB color can be confusing if you've never studied photography and all, but RGB is basically red, green, blue. These are three planes that combined together can make up a color, right? And we are going to be basically using those planes, the RGB values, to create a color. And to enable a new node, to create a new node, we can go ahead and use right-click to basically search for anything that we want. If you don't know what you're looking for, you can use these drop-downs to find out exactly the node that you want, and there are thousands of them. Are we going to use any of them?
No way.
We haven't used 95% of these. There's just way too many. You're going to be using only a few of them all the time, so that's what we're going to cover today. So if you want to bring any of them, you just click on it, and it appears in your window, and then you can move it around your scene. We're not going to need this, so we're going to delete it. And one more thing before we actually bring in any node, if you want to move around this tab right here, you use right-click, and that's going to grab the screen, and you're just moving around, and then scroll to zoom out and scroll to zoom in.
Yeah.
So we want to bring in an RGB node. The shortcut for that, memorize this, is 3, left-click. So look at this right here, 3, left-click. Boom. Just like that.
Yeah.
Easy. 3, left-click. You can do it many times just to memorize it, right? And what we're looking at right now is basically an RGB node, and RGB will have 3 values, right? 0, 0, 0 at this moment, which means it's absolutely black. And we have 4 nodes that can be popping out of this exact node, which is our overall node, which combines the RGB. That's what we want for our color. And then you have the red on its own, the green on its own, and the blue on its own. For our use case, we're going to need the overall because we want to use the color. And Farhad, what do we do now?
Connect the overall to base color.
Connect it by left-clicking, drag it, drop it on base color. You'll see the check mark, let it go, and just like that, we have it on. So right now it's black, so there's absolutely no difference. Farhad, can we change it to another color?
Let's change it to red.
How do we do that?
Click on the black box over there.
We're going to double-click on this right here, and we're presented with this color wheel. We can go ahead and change it to any color that we want. There are just way too many things that you can play around with to pretty much define the specific color that you want. You can even use the eyedropper tool, or you can go ahead and bring in an hex value from Google. Maybe you have a specific image you're looking at and you're trying to create a specific color. You can use that exact hex color code. So let's just go for, what color did you say?
Red color.
Red color. Okay, cool. We got a red color, something like that. And then we're going to hit OK. So we can see that the material has changed. And if you go ahead and drag the tab right here, however, we do not see the change happening here. Why is that?
Apply it, bro. Apply it.
We got to apply it, right?
Yeah.
So every single time we make changes here, we have to go ahead and hit apply at the top left to make sure it applies to our scene. So hit apply, et voila.
Boom.
We did it.
Done. Congratulations, guys.
We made our first material. So this is basically how you change the color, right? Very simple. So let's keep this tab right here so that we can see the changes happen in real time. I'm going to drag this guy right here so you see our mouse clicks. Now, the next thing we're going to change is
the metallic value.
The metallic value. Now, the metallic value and the specular value and the roughness value, and we're going to describe what they are, all use a single value. They're not your RGB. They don't need 3 different values. They're just 1. So what's the shortcut for that?
1.
1.
Yes.
And left click. So
Yes.
1, left click. That's your shortcut to basically bring in a value, a single number. And we are going to hook this into our metallic, right? The same way we did the base color. Now, before we go ahead and apply, Farhad, what does metallic do?
So it will show you how metallic your material is, whether it's fully metallic or it's not, or something in the middle.
Something in the middle will be between 0 and 1.
Yes.
That's the value, right? So if it's at 0, and if we hit apply, nothing will happen really because our material was not really metallic prior to this. But if we go ahead and change its value to 1, we can change it from here or from the details panel right here. So change it to 1. Hit apply. You already see the difference before we hit apply right here. Let's go ahead and hit apply and see it. Boom. Just like that, our material is now a little bit more metallic, right? You see how it reflects light? It's very different. The next thing we're going to change is
specular.
So how do we change the value?
Same. You Control D, duplicate our value node, and then connect it to specular.
Control D to duplicate, or use 1 left click, right? And then we can go ahead and insert it into our specular. So what is specular?
How shiny our material is, how smooth our material is.
So we actually have the definition right here as well. Do not use Microsoft Edge. We're only using it because our Chrome is filled up. But basically, a specular is basically the highlights of your mesh, right? How smooth it is, and that is going to change the way it's going to show highlights on the material. So right now, I'm not sure how much this is going to be visible because our material is really plain. Remember, we don't have textures on it, so it's not going to be really clear, but it's still going to be enough. Let's go ahead and change our metallic to 0. This might be easier to see. And our specular, it's okay. And our specular to 0 as well. And see what our material looks like. So this is it with 0 value. So 0 metallic, 0 specular. You can even see this ball right here and see what happens when we change it to 1. Specular of 1. Do you see the difference in the highlights? See, 0, no highlights, 1, highlights. Hit apply, see the difference? Yep, you can actually see the difference. It probably would have been easier to see it on a sphere in the scene, but that's okay. You get the point. Now, the next thing we're going to change is your roughness. Duplicate again.
Do it again.
Duplicate again. And we're going to hook this up to our roughness. A roughness of 1, which means our value, our material is going to be super rough, super dull. So hit apply. Probably going to take away from the shininess, right? Now, Farhad, this is going to be my favorite part.
Let's make it 0.
Let's make it 0. See what happens.
Ooh.
Boom. Now we got this glossy material that is reflecting light. And so we can see our scene inside this cube, on top of the cube, if you will.
It's like a mirror.
It's like a mirror. Yeah. Exactly. Now, if you look closely, by the way, you'll notice that our reflections look kind of horrible, and that's because of some of our render settings. And we're going to talk about the render settings later on to make it look like perfect and make the reflections great using ray tracing. That's what we talked about in the very beginning of our chapter 1. We're going to talk about that later when we get to the settings. So don't worry, it's going to look really good later on. Now, the roughness, specular, metallic, base color, we've already shown you. So the next thing we're going to change is our emissive color. This is basically saying, are we emitting any light from our material? One of my favorite nodes. So we are going to be using, first of all, a 3 node. That's going to be our RGB to decide what color the light is. And then later we're going to teach you how to actually increase the intensity to make it emit even more light. Because materials can emit light and then they can be dynamic in your scene. Very cool. So let's go ahead and bring in what?
A 3, an RGB.
A 3 node. So 3, left click. Just like the top, we're going to take this, drag it to our emissive color. And right now it's on black, so it's not going to do anything. Hit apply. It's not going to emit any light. If you go ahead and double click this, change it to white.
Change it to red.
Change it to red. No, it's already red. I don't want to do that. I want to see the difference.
Okay.
So I'm going to change it to white and hit OK and see the difference. Okay. Hit OK. Boom. Apply.
Ta-da.
Look at that.
Wow.
It's already emitting light. And it's not a lot. You'll see if I Control Z, look at this. Control Z. And I'm just going to, okay, if you want to disable a node, it's Control click on the line that is connecting the node. So Control click this node right here. So make sure it's highlighted. Control click and then let go, right? That's how you disable a node, break a connection. And then see this light bouncing off this cube. It's going to go away. Hit apply. Boom, off. So it was actually emitting light. Now, do we want to go ahead and talk about how we can control the intensity of the light here?
We can do it.
Okay, perfect. So if you want to go ahead and connect this again, okay, let's go. And since Farah wanted red, let's see what that looks like. Hit apply. So right now there's a bit of red. The color changed because it's now red as a base color and also an emissive light on top of it. So it changed to sort of like a pinkish red. If you want to go ahead and increase the intensity, we're going to be using a multiply node. A multiply node that's going to allow us to hook in a value to control how intense the light is. So this is going to come in real handy in a lot of situations. So memorize this. So how do we bring in a multiply node?
Right click, search multiply. Or do you have a shortcut for it?
We do have a shortcut. So
M?
let's do it. Let's do it your way.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's M, but let's do it your way. So let's go to multiply and hit OK. So that's a multiply node. Or you can do that shorter, M, left click for multiply.
Okay.
Very cool. So up until now, you've learned 3, right? 3 left click,
One.
1 left click,
And
and M left click. So everything we just learned can be done really quickly.
Trust me, that's 50% of the nodes that you will lose.
Really, really. And once we have the multiply node, okay, we're going to bring in also a value node, which is
1.
1, okay, to control the intensity. So now we want to just combine the emissive color plus this value together. So we're going to hook this now into our A, so one of these values, and then we're going to hook this into the B, and now they're combined, they're multiplied together, and now instead of this connection, we don't need to break it, we just need to replace it. It will automatically place it instead of the old connection. So take this multiply node, put it into emissive color,
Boom.
and right now it's there. So the value is right now 0. So hit apply, see what happens. No emissive, change it to 1. It's going to be just like before.
Change it to 3.
Change it to 3. It's going to emit even more light. Look at it.
Boom.
Boom.
Wow.
It's going to emit even more light. Change it to 55. It's going to turn white because
Too much
when,
light.
Yeah, too much light. That's exactly what happens. Change it to 55. Boom. Look at that.
Wow.
And then we have these blotchy lights all over because right now we haven't changed our render settings, and that's why we're getting this weird lighting artifact. We're going to fix all of that later on, but just showing you that we're actually emitting a lot of light. If this was, by the way, path tracing for all of you 3D nerds, this would look perfect. Because we're using Lumen, it's not. Lumen and path tracing, we're going to describe later on in the rendering chapters. Don't worry. Okay, changing this back to 1. Apply and save. So Farhad, what do we have next?
Material instances. Let's see how we can use them.
Okay, perfect. So right now we have a parent material, right? This is the original material that we created. Let's say, okay, we created this one material and we're a pro. We have thousands of nodes, or not even thousands. We have like 10 more nodes here. And we don't want to go ahead and create a new material for every single different color that we want. We want to use all of the properties of that same material. Maybe the normal map, the specular, the roughness is the same, but we just want to change the color, right? We don't want to go ahead and duplicate the material 5 times and then go and change. We just want to create a child material from the parent material and make changes to the child materials. And the reason for that is also because we'll have quicker access to the child material parameters inside the engine right here without having to go back to the material graph, right? And you'll understand exactly why that's going to be useful in a moment. So we have this box material. I'm going to change the name to box master, or short will be MM, so master material underscore box, right? This is going to be master material box, and we're going to apply this, make sure it's applied. And then we're going to create a
Can you
child.
turn off the emissive for this MM box?
Sure, I'm going to turn off the emissive.
Just make it 0.
I'm just going to break this connection for now. Okay, control, click, break the connection. Okay, cool. Hit apply and save. So right now I have this value, and one of the things that's really annoying is that every time I want to make changes, I have to go back to the material graph and I hit apply. We're going to change that using material instances. So this is MM box. We're going to create a child material or material instance by right-clicking on it and creating material instance, okay? It's already created an MM box instance with the name, and we can just hit OK. We're OK with that. So let's replace the instance material now on top of the cube. Change it. So drag and drop so that it's using that material so that it's not going back to the parent. Now, if we open up the material instance, we're not going to be seeing a material graph. We're going to see what the material looks like and just a bunch of options here telling us how to find the parent material. So it's just leading us to MMBox. If we look for it using this button, which we already learned at an earlier chapter, we'll find the parent material. So what's the use case of it right now?
If you want to change the color or other parameters, we can go to material master and then set them to a parameter and then come and change it here.
Absolutely. And that's the best freaking part about Unreal Engine materials. So let's go back to the parent material, and we have to make some changes. This is just like coding. If you're a developer, you probably know how this works in writing a code. We can go ahead and change all of these to parameters simply by right-clicking on a node, right? Not all nodes will allow you to do this. It really depends on what kind of node it is, but all of this actually work with parameters. So right-click, convert to parameter. If you convert it to a parameter, it's asking us for a name now because we need to look at the name in the instance and actually be able to define what this color is used for. So this is our base color, right? Base color. Cool. And then these guys, they need to be changing, they need to change to a parameter as well. So right click, convert to parameter. This is metallic. This right click, this is specular. And this one is roughness. Okay. Let's not talk about emissive yet. Let's just keep it simple. Hit apply and save. Nothing's changed. But if we go back to our material instances,
Now you see all the values.
now we see all the values. And check this bad boy out. So we're going to save, make sure everything's safe. Save at the bottom right. So in case we crash. We are going to check these guys just to say, okay, we want to start using these, right? Now we have converted to parameters. So the moment we did that, they appeared here. We're going to check our metallic, check our roughness, which means we want to start changing these values. And then check our base color. Open it up. Guess what? Now we can update all of these values in real time and see the difference without having to apply anything. So let's go ahead and change the metallic value.
Ooh.
Or maybe the roughness.
Wow.
Or maybe the specular, right? Which is not going to make that much of a difference right now in this cube. If it was a sphere, we'll see it. Or Farah, what about the color?
Let's turn it to blue. Ooh.
Boom, right?
Done.
Now, why is this useful? Check this out. So I now want to make this also a cube of similar properties with a different color. I'm going to go ahead, take my master material, create another instance, right? Call this box instance, but I'm going to call this yellow. Yellow. I want this to be my yellow. And then you can see at the bottom left, it says material instance, right? These are my instances. This is my material. I'm going to drag and drop this guy here, right? I'm going to make sure I change this instance to blue so I know this is my blue color. Blue, right? Sorry, that's blue T. Blue. So this is my yellow. Drag and drop. Just want to make sure it's correct. And this is my blue. So now, without going to my master material, I can open up my yellow, right? Check these guys again. And then I can now set these values independent of the first one. I can change this to yellow. Is that yellow? That is yellow.
Yellow.
And I can make it more metallic, make it more rough. And just like that, I didn't have to go and create a whole new material, go ahead and keep updating the material graph here. I have all of those accessible within the material instance. And that is why material instances are so freaking powerful. Now, one last thing I just want to cover, since we did play with the emissive, we can go ahead and hook this up now into emissive, and the changes will all go through all the instances, right? Because they're all children of this parent material. Let's go ahead and convert this to a parameter, call it emissive color, right? And then we're going to change this also to a parameter, call it emissive
Intensity.
strength or intensity. Both of them work. And then hit apply and save.
Both of them will
And now both of them,
shine bright.
yes, have an emissive because it's default at 1. Let's change the default to 0 because we don't want it to emitting light. Maybe I only want one of them to emit light. I want the yellow to emit light. So now I have this extra option for my emissive color and an extra option for emissive strength. I can go ahead and change the emissive color to also yellow and then increase that value right here and see it react in real time. Baby, congratulations.
That was the texture and material.
Hold up. Did you guys know you can speed up your workflow by using Polycam's photogrammetry instead of modeling and texturing?
Yeah, you just snap a couple of photos and voila. Plus, your objects will automatically look photorealistic because they're actually real.
Shout out to Polycam for sponsoring this course and giving you guys 30% off their pro plan. Promo code and link in the description.
But what if we want to bring realistic textures from the internet?
That's actually a good question because most of the time we're going to be doing that. We're probably not going to be creating a simple material like this. So let's say you want to bring in material from outside. What we're going to do is use one of the free materials of textures.com. So shout out to these guys. We went ahead to their free section. You can go ahead and do the exact same. And then we looked for this material right here, which says sci-fi panel. So we went on top of the sci-fi panel, and then we went ahead and downloaded the 4K version of all of these different maps right here, except the height map. We didn't need that, and we'll explain why in a moment. So go ahead and download the 4K, 2K, 1K version. The resolution is basically defining how good your materials look, how detailed they look. If your computer doesn't have the storage or the performance capabilities, you can go ahead and download a lower res version. So once you download them, we're going to go ahead and find them in our content browser on our computer, right? We have it located right here. And what we have to do is simply open up our content drawer. We're going to create a new folder, call it sci-fi panel. No, let's call it textures.com. I don't know, check. There's no dot. Textures from internet.
That's a horrible naming.
Stupidest name, but it's okay. And then we're going to go to our folder right here, and we're going to drag and drop all of these into our content drawer. Really as simple as that, right? They're just going to pop right in. Control space, and we see all of these right here. You can go ahead and double click on them to see what they look like, and their properties are going to be here. You can even change some of these values. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. We don't need that right now. So once you have these textures loaded, we need to go ahead and create a new material to load them in and connect them to the right nodes. So let's go ahead and create a new material. We already know how to do this. What are we going to call it?
Sci-fi
panels, right? And we're going to open up the material, and we're going to maximize this. Right click to drag to the side. And I'm going to put this right here so we'll see. And then control space to open up the content drawer. Let's drag everything, shift select everything, and then drag it into the material graph. Now, we have too many nodes, so let's go ahead and separate them just so we don't get confused by what they are and what they do. And if you forget what each of these maps are, we can go ahead and look on the very left side once we click on them to see what they are. So if they're very small, go ahead and enlarge the space so you'll see what they are. For example, this is my metallic map. This is my AO. I'll explain what that is in a moment. My normal map, my roughness map, and my albedo. Starting from the albedo, these textures, as we talked about, already come with all the details. So you don't have to go ahead and create an RGB value or even a single float value to go ahead and control any of these. You can go ahead and alter them if you like, but by default, they come in exactly the way they look online when you download it or purchase these textures. So starting with the albedo, Farah, what is albedo?
The base color.
That's the base color. That's just another word for base color, right? So in order to hook this in, we're going to use the RGB value, base color, and we can already see the difference right here in this sphere. So first things first, I want to talk to you guys about the bottom right corner right here. You can actually change your viewing mesh. It can be a sphere, it can be a cylinder, it can be a plane. Sometimes that helps. It can be a cube, or I think this is going to be really cool for when you have a specific mesh. If you have, let's say, I don't have anything right now to show you guys, but I'll just tell you theoretically how this works. If you have a specific mesh, like a spaceship, that you want to go ahead and use here in the material viewport, you can basically use this button right here. As long as you have the mesh selected in your drawer, you'll be able to switch it with this button and it will change to that specific spaceship. We don't have it right now. We only have cubes, so it doesn't work. But it's good to know. So moving on, I want to go ahead and actually apply this to my scene so you'll make sure to see the differences. So Farhad, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take this sci-fi panel. Let's apply it to this guy right here. So at first, it's gray. Why?
Apply.
Apply, baby. Gotta apply.
Let's go.
Hit apply. And boom.
Boom.
We have the sci-fi panels on top of the cube, but it's still lacking a lot of detail, right?
We need to connect other map.
We need to connect the other maps. So in order to do that, let's first see what this one is. This one is the, let's see, should be roughness map. So roughness will go into roughness. So you guys will come here. You're going to go to roughness, hit apply, and see what happens. Boom.
Oh.
Immediately,
It got more shiny.
more shiny. Perfect. Okay. So the next thing we're going to need is the metallic. So this is metallic. I'm going to look closer. Metallic map, right? Perfect. So metallic will go into metallic. Right here, RGB to metallic. And then let's pay close attention to what happens to the sides right here, to these guys, when I hit apply. Boom.
Boom.
Already turned metallic, right? And if you want to know exactly how this works, let's double click this texture image. See, the white areas, that's the one value of 1. That's where the metallic surface is. And anything that is black is
Zero.
not metallic. The same thing applies to roughness and specular, by the way. And then the next thing is your normal map. So remember how we talked about normal map giving fake detail, right? So if you hook up the normal map here, let's go closer to these dots, like right here. Yeah. So right now they're just flat dots. And this is a flat cube. It's just one plane. But see what normal maps do. Hit apply. Boom.
Ooh.
Do you see that? Fake detail. We haven't changed the mesh. The mesh is still a cube, but we got this fake detail on top because the normal map says, hey, I want you to bounce off lighting in a different way when you hit that specific spot because of the normal map. And the last map we're going to talk about here is AO, which is
Ambient occlusion.
absolutely ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion, if you open it up, is basically The occlusion means blocking things out. So ambient occlusion, usually if you look at a floor and a wall, in the very corners, you'll see a dark spot because light is not reaching it. And so it's slightly dark. The darkness in the corner gives you the sense of realism. So when you're missing that in CG, that's when you can tell if something is fake and not real, not photoreal. So ambient occlusion helps you with that, photorealism. And so we're going to hook that in. It's probably going to be a very minute difference. I don't even know where it is. It's probably here in these dots right here. So let's pay close attention. RGB will go to ambient occlusion. Hit apply. Yeah, it's very minimal. Sometimes the difference can be a lot. So hit apply. All right, perfect. Now, Farhad, do you know what happens if I go ahead and stretch this cube?
Your texture will be stretched.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and scale this.
No.
Oh, that's ruined. Okay. So in order to fix this, we need to go ahead and control the way these textures are tiling on top of our mesh. And the way we do that, we don't want to get too deep into the concept of it, but basically it's using UVs right here. Each node has that. Each texture has UVs. And it's basically how they're wrapped around a mesh. So in order to control this tiling, we're going to be using a setup that is already created for us in Unreal Engine. You can manually do this. We're not going to do that because why do we do it if it's already there? So right click, look for
tiling.
MF tiling. So if I search for tiling, I'll see MF tiling multiple times. Just use any of them. They still work. Bring it in. And all we have to do is connect the result node into the UVs of all of these nodes. And hook it up, hook it up, hook it up. Hook it up. We're going to do the same thing for all of these guys. Hook it up. And one last one right here. Okay, cool. So hit apply and save. Now, this hasn't changed anything yet. We have to go ahead and change the values. But if you want to see what this is actually doing, we have to click this, right? Double click it to see what MF tiling is. There's a whole other node graph just for MF tiling. But this actually works like how we created a parameter. So in order to change these values, we have to create a material instance to access the numbers. So let's go ahead and do that. Save. And then let's minimize this. Let's go ahead and create a material instance right here. And the name is fine. Let's go ahead and apply this now to our cube. We can see on the right side, it's applied. And if we go ahead and open up the material instance, we haven't converted anything to a parameter, but because we brought in MF tiling, this one automatically comes with parameters, which is why if you go ahead and turn on tiling offset, which is what we want, and what we hooked into our UVs, we now have access to tiling X and tiling Y. By changing these values, we're actually going to be changing the tiling. So now we can make this huge sci-fi panel, which is really cool, or reset this value to 1. And then we can go ahead and maybe play with this, right? Pull the Y to a larger number. And now we have, I think, successfully created proper tiling. What do you say, Farhad?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Perfect. Okay. And I believe that brings us to the end of the basics
of materials and textures.
So right now, you know how to create a basic setup for a material, and you know how to create tiling so that your materials are not stretched.
In the next chapter, we are going to use this knowledge and put material and texture on our spaceship.
Right. So we're going to go more advanced. So if you're ready for that, go ahead and get yourself some coffee, and let's start with the next chapter.
Click the video right here.